Welcome back to Morning Live, and as we told you earlier before we took a break, we want to focus on what is happening in the country. And yesterday we had former Prime Minister Raila Odinga actually pointing fingers directly at the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto for just coming out and mentioning figures that haven't been confirmed while the investigations are still on. CS Rotich has been grilled by the DCA for 2 consecutive days for hours. So the point is, let's wait and hear what will happen after it all. And also, that means there's so much in store as far as the succession politics is concerned. That means guys are bracing themselves for the 2022 elections. So who will gang up with who, and of course, where is the direction going? The dams in Elgeyo Marakwet also will be touching on our conversation, and there's so much in store as far as putting Bwana Deputy President under the bus. And in studio, I'm joined by 2 gentlemen, Professor Murej Makucheng, and of course, Bwana Dennis Ntumbi, who is a political analyst right here on Switch TV, to touch base on what has been happening. Karibu sana, Professor. Karibu sana, Bwana Dennis.
Thank you so much.
You look good, my father.
Thank you.
My father.
I appreciate it.
My brother. Okay. All right. So, Prof,
Yes.
straight into it. The former Prime Minister came out up in arms in front of the DP, confidently addressing him in front of the governors all over the country, and that was a strong, confident move no one expected. What is happening?
Very strong statement. We can only speculate, but I think people have become, very abrasive, and one just hopes that this abrasiveness is underpinned by, confidence in what is taking place. But I think that our politics is very much media-driven. When our leaders know that, where they will be talking, there is a ready and excited audience out there listening to them, then they play out what actually happens behind closed doors. So I think this conversation probably is going to escalate, but I think that, in my own opinion, it looks like, there are people in certain quarters who have decided that this is the time when, niceties, will have to be put aside, and that it is a politics that is going to be defined by, the gloves being off.
Okay.
So I think I think it is a tit and tat kind of game.
Okay.
And as we approach 2022, corruption is just part of it.
Okay.
And I think that what he was trying to put across is that this is where we stand. This is our position. We seem to know what you are capable of. We seem to know what you have done. But that is just, for us, that is politics.
Okay.
And I think what he was right about is that we need to wait and know what the DCI is going to be coming up with. But having said that, both parties, both camps, individuals are using this process to play politics. And
Interesting.
it's going to escalate.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, the escalation effect. I understand now the former Prime Minister is closer to the President courtesy of the handshake. And we know now he has the confidence to address anything corruption in this country, because that's the core business right now, to just eliminate this vice in this country. Now, do you think that was wise from him, with the fact that now he's closer to the President, and will the President actually protect his deputy here?
The truth is that I've never attributed wisdom to Mr. Raila Odinga.
Okay.
But the truth is that whether he's close to President or not, what we know is that Mr. Raila is closely guarding his interests and playing politics of 2022. We also know that Mr. Raila has weaponized his politics over time against his arch nemesis, Mr. Ruto. That's the truth. And one of the things that we have to avoid by all means is fight against graft that is veiled towards one community or one people, that's non-factual, and that is going to portend to political risk. Because where we are going right now is that there's a graft fight or war that we're being told is war against graft. But to be absolutely honest, even if you look at this issue of dams, is that nobody is mentioning Thakwe Dam in Makueni, that 7.2 billion was already paid several years ago. Nobody is mentioning Karumenu Dam in Kiambu, that 3.2 or 3.4, 3.2 billion was paid about 2 years ago. Why is there only a particular interest on 2 dams in Elgeyo Marakwet that KWS has been frustrating to approve, yet the rest were approved and paid a collective of about 11 billion? Then why is there no interest in speaking about that? Also, the non-factuality about figures and all that, and attributing it to Deputy President. The truth is that corruption is there, but it is erroneous, and it's putting this country at political risk, weaponizing it towards one person that you hit to see them on the ballot of 2022.
Okay.
Let us be level-headed, and let us, introduce an aspect of counterbalance in fighting this graft. And this graft is not only petty. We're not looking at it at policeman level, because to be absolutely honest, we have 3 forms of corruption in this country. We have petty, that then you have the traffic cop here, and you have it at Sharia House or Huduma, whatever it is, where you give you 1,000, 2,000 or whatever. Then we have grand, and grand is at the highest level, where we are seeing topmost politicians using political influence to dodge policy, regulations, law, procurement systems that are about. Then we have systemic corruption, whereby it's portended by weak institutions.
Okay.
Corruption is there. It's been there even those days that Mr. Raila Odinga was prime minister, but we didn't see any effect. The truth is that we need to fight corruption in this country from a level-headed perspective. But let's not bring in an aspect of political risk, succession politics, and put the country into further risk, whereby this country is already very fragile. In fact, personally, I'm calling it a failed state.
Absolutely.
Because it has every signs and symptoms of a failed state. So let's not just weaponize this fight against graft.
All right. Now, Prof, you mentioned the gloves are finally off right now, because from today, I understand, to the weekend, for any church service, any function, we want to see the squadron from the DP's side come up in arms against now the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. What do you expect now? You know, he has his army also, and it's about to get dirty.
A lot of these things are really predictable. We are used to them as Kenyans. I think we won't really be surprised. I think what really we need to do right now is to shift our politics away from the funerals and the and the churches and the weekend politics. Because we seem to discuss issues that are so fundamental to our country over the weekend. While those spaces that have been constitutionally given to discuss these things, we don't do them. What I want to say though is that commenting on my colleagues' observations, I don't think it should be a matter of what about this. Let people talk about all corruption. So if there is corruption in X place, let it come out. Politicians will run with it anyway. If there is corruption in B place, if there are other places where there is corruption, let that come out. And let the institutions that are mandated to do their job do their job. Whether or not we'll succeed to zip the mouths of politicians, I think we've got a very little chance there. But while this is taking place, let the fight against corruption be relentless. And regardless of the positions that people hold in society, let us cultivate a culture of freedom where people say whatever they want to say. Though, of course, those who are in political office have got to be a bit measured in how they say that, so that they don't inflame the kind of failings that later on results in a brother standing against brother. But the war against corruption, honestly, we are talking about billions as if it was 1,000 shillings.
Absolutely.
While there are people out there in this country who are struggling to pay for little things, and all of a sudden we are talking about billions as if it is just knowing very well that those billions will have to pay for every cent.
It's true that.
And even those people who are on the ground struggling will have to pay for that. And I think it is extremely unfair. In fact, if somebody asks me, this country is actually ripe for a revolution. regardless of who is in power, who is in what particular camp, this country needs a revolution. What we are talking about here, even these political fights that we are seeing, whether they are weaponized, individualized, or whatever, for us right now, we've reached a stage where this really is not the issue. The issue is that we need to save this country.
Okay.
And if it takes a revolution, please let us go for it. That is my position.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Prof has touched on revolution, but when gentlemen are aligning themselves for the 2022 situation, it's a pity because already we're in 2019. It's too early for where I'm seated. Now, there's so much happening in this country. Poverty, of course, so many things happening. Our education system is messed up big time. The changes in the cabinet also sparked some debate the other day. Now, Ntumbi, when you talk about alignment and looking at these social injustices going around our country, do you think it's wise for politicians to start now politicizing everything? Politicizing cabinet reshuffle, politicizing kind of a tribal alignment. What's happening to these leaders now?
The truth is this, everything in this country that you see is political. And that's the reason why earlier on I said political risk. Corruption is political. Appointments are political. Everything else that you look at in this country is driven from a political standpoint, as opposed to policy and law. And I never said that don't discuss politics at any level. I mean, corruption at any level. In fact, whether it's petty, grand, or systemic, we must talk about it. My view was that let us not weaponize corruption, because it gets us into the perennial, or within the 5 years, of a political risk that breaks this country down. The truth is this, from a counterbalance where we can declare war on corruption, and then we can maintain a counterbalance as a country to avoid our fragility or breaking down as a country, and then we can make that into a campaign that effectively and it's not subjudicial or prejudicial, whatever it is that there is that from a level-headed we can factually strengthen the graft fighting institutions without using them politically. And that's what I mean, without one community feeling that we are targeted, whether it's the truth or not. The fact is that justice must be balanced from all quarters. We don't want to see the president protecting his people and fighting other people, then that doesn't become honest. It becomes dishonest, whether the corruption is true or not. You see, this is what messes up a just fight against the endemic corruption that we have. And the truth is that corruption is at all levels, whether it's education, whether it's judicial, whether it's from the police, whatever sector in this country, it is plagued by endemic corruption. Therefore, that means this is a fight for our life in this country. And when somebody, takes their strong palm and closes your noses and your mouth so that you don't breathe, you need to fight for your life. And I think this is where we are as a country. And I agree and I join with my brother that this country is ripe. Is ripe for a revolution. It is true. I pray that the president will say that I have failed you people and I'm stepping down before the revolution comes down. Those government officials, the favor that they need to do is, because a systemic or an endemic corruption shows one thing, that the president has failed to govern, institutions have failed. Therefore, we are likely then to get into worse scenarios. Every resource in this country is being plundered, whether it's economic or whether it's natural at the end of the day. And we've sold this country to the Chinese and other guys who are just plundering and raping this country. I'm sorry to use that name. But the truth of the matter is that things are likely to get worse, especially because of the fact that we are now introducing the political risk in the fight against graft. You saw the other day, one side is accused of exposing the president's family in this KQ saga. We have a serious industrial action, and we've just been granted category 1. At the end of the day, we are likely to lose our status. We are just undressing and shaming ourselves right in the eyes of the world. At the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen, and just revolutions start from there. I would personally prefer the stepping down of these power-hungry monsters who want to collapse this country down. You know, you want to retain power within cronies and within bloodlines.
Okay.
But what you don't understand is that that system died 10 years ago when we brought this new constitution that you want to kill through a referendum.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I'm saying the likes of Raila and even the president are not sincere, and they're using institutions, you know, to fight for their lives, come retaining power in 2022. What we want is a true fight on graft. And what we want to know, what we want is a system that aligns with our new constitution, where there's proper accountability.
Now, Prof, have Kenyans learned, especially, of course, the voters, that is, have they learned? Because now, when we align our loyalty to, because now the one who is actually now a key contender in the elections is from my tribe, and I will have to vote for him or her. Are Kenyans learning from all these back-to-back situations? To be specific, back-to-back corruption cases. Are Kenyans learning? Already our economy is struggling right now. Taxpayers are struggling right now. We are paying so much into China. And it boils down to the voters who actually made that decision. Are we learning from what, of maybe the decisions actually the voters made?
It's very difficult to really say whether we are learning or not. But I think if there is any learning, it's a learning that comes out of frustration.
Okay.
You know, because we have a politics right now of spectacle, meaning that we are waiting every evening, every day to see what the leaders are saying. But what I'll tell you is that there are other spaces where people are discussing these things. In social media, in small groups, and I think what I referred to about this frustration that the country is having right now, though it may not be seen very much in the traditional media, in the social media it is there. People are feeling like, you know what, we are fed up. Regardless of where the truth is, but the truth is what we feel, you know, the effects of all this on, you know, on our lives. And that effect is not particularly, you know, particularly good. And what I want to say is that the political leadership in this country has for a very long time been underpinned by, you know, by groups, you know, very much defined by ethnicity. But at this particular moment, if we were to talk about corruption, you know, the kind of frustrations that the president himself has had, and also even the kind of conversation that tries to put a spotlight on him, I think for me that is misguided. Let us look at a leader, you know, through the eyes of what he's doing, and also understanding that he's dealing with a system that is extremely complex, that can be very frustrating. But when he stands up day in, day out, and for now, consistently talking about corruption, and even saying, you know, I hope he's honest, I believe he is, that even as far as I am concerned myself, if you've got any issue, please take it to the DCI. That is where we need to go. Whether he's sincere or not, that is the direction. That corruption, the fight against corruption should spare nobody. Let it be done methodically. Let it be done according to the systems that are laid out. But we need to avoid this situation where we retreat and start asking ourselves, is this fight targeted at a particular community? Is it targeted at a particular individual? That we should not have that conversation. Let us come to a position where we say, even if it is my brother or my sister or my spouse, corruption is corruption. Of course, the closer it is, that fight, the more it hurts. But let us see, you know, the actions out there that people who are involved in corruption are taken to court. And that fight becomes unrelenting because it is about the country. It's not about individuals. And for me, part of the risk, yes, I know that politics can bring a lot of risk. Part of the risk is when this conversation ideologically is made now to sound like somebody, an individual or a community is being targeted. That probably for me is the biggest risk, because the only way we can address that is to say, okay, can we now group, you know, as an ethnic group and defend ourselves. And you see, when we get there, do you know what happened in 2007?
Yeah, that was unfortunate. That was very unfortunate.
And
But
that is what this conversation is telling us, that if you take this corruption fight in that direction,
yeah,
then it is going to be about us. And you know, the only way we can respond is to defend ourselves.
it's true.
And that conversation, that ideological conversation, is preparing people's minds and hearts. And for me, that is the biggest risk.
Okay.
Yes.
When you talk about legacy, because now the president is kind of wrapping up his term, and there's a fear that indeed some people are trying to spoil my last journey in this government, and he's trying now to come out strongly in the name of just protecting his territory. Cabinet reshuffle, making Matiang'i that senior guy in the cabinet, and of course now trying to fight this vice big time from all the corners. Handshake situation, because he knows this guy knows how to really work around his ways to make sure there's some sanity also in this country. Now, when you talk about legacy, is there fear from the president that indeed some people might just want to spoil my term? Because when you look at Mwai Kibaki's term, he was an introvert, but you could see some things are happening. Yes, we had some few issues left and center. An introvert who is not out there talking so much, but you could see some things are happening. Kenyans were kind of satisfied with his legacy, but what is happening behind the curtains?
The truth is that for the president to have any sin or good legacy is that he must first of all sacrifice himself and put his own personal interests of retiring in 2022. What's getting in between him and anything good is in his interest to prolong stay in power.
So is that part of it? Is that part of all these games?
And the truth is that the president is not ready to retire come 2022.
Wow.
It's a known fact now.
Okay.
And that's the reason why we are calling for a referendum. And the truth is that, look, we will be absolutely lying if we say that the fight in corruption has the president subverting power from the legal system, the economic system, and using political influence to weaponize the fight against graft on the outcome of the elections in 2022. Let me tell you what, you asked a question earlier, and sorry, I'm just pegging that, is that do we blame the people? No, I never blame the voter anymore.
Okay.
Because you know what? The ballot system is manipulated in this country. You don't know who the outcome is. They decide who will be president. They decide who will be your MP. They decide who will be your governor. The fact is that every institution in this country is personalized for political gain. And that's the reason why I said the fight against graft in this country, as currently constituted, is mission impossible, is a lie, is a facet, is a phantom exercise to manipulate the outcome and to sustain, stay in power. And that's the whole truth. And let me tell you what, before you go further, let me just say something that is absolutely honest, is that all the CSs have been accused of grand corruption at the end of the day. The president's family has been mentioned in some critical cases. At the end of the day, if you're looking at it, and I know Honorable Sudi said DCI is Uhuru and Uhuru is DCI at the end of the day. How do you trust an institution where the person is a political appointee? At the end of the day, they know if we do anything wrong, there will be an issue. I'm glad that the DPP and the office of the ODPP mentioned that the story of the dams as published by the Standard was erroneous, fallacious at the end of the day, and it's absolutely manipulative in terms of agenda setting. We need to speak the truth, and if we are fighting graft, we need to stop weaponizing graft so that we can sustain power through some families in this country.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming to studio today, for your insights. We hope to see you soon again. Second time on Switch TV. Karibu sana. And Bwana Nthumbi, thank you so much for always having your sentiments, very honest sentiments. You speak your mind. Thank you so much for that. And of course, let's hope we'll find some direction, because now so many things are happening in this country. And at the end of the day, is the people who are suffering.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We're now taking a short break now. When you come back, you want to focus on other issues affecting our region. Now I want to shift focus to Tanzania, where there's so much happening in that country. All that after a short break.